are big sharers. Learn what we've learned during the course of a week only on Pod Pourri, a magazine that will always be loaded only on the Podcaster, powered by Timber Media.
All right, it's time for Pod Pourri. It's been a while since we've done this. I've got with me actually today, didn't realize, but it's a lot of girl power on the show. Aditi, who's a wonderful intern who's been working with us for the past month, and we're going to be very sad to see her go in another week. And of course, the one and only Sheetal Iyer. Let me say hi to both of you. Hello.
Hi.
Aditi is just freaking out about saying hi because she's been behind the podcast so far and now she's on one. So
yeah, it's my first ever time.
It's your first ever time. I mean, yes, that would be that. Hi, Sheetal. How are you doing?
Doing great, Ahalya. In fact, better than usual because I'm just back from a podcaster summit and that doesn't sound like it's something new. But in India, in the Indian ecosystem, this is one of the first of its kind because usually we get lumped in with the radio awards, and even that was a more recent occurrence when people realized that there is such a thing as a thriving podcast ecosystem in India. But then you were still a footnote at the end of the award, best podcast of the year or something of that sort. And for us at Timber, it was even more tricky because we're a B2B service provider and our clients obviously need to submit their podcasts as entries into this, into any forum if they had to. So yes, the first of its kind was there, HT Smartcast's Podmasters 2024. And I was a panelist talking about how to monetize podcasts. So I've had fun because not too many ideas, at the end of the day. And we seem to be the only guys who have some sort of a clue, some sort of a way of long-term contracts that help us monetize. But yes, nice to be here.
Okay, perfect. The word Podpourri, I never know how to actually say it. Do you know how to say the word Podpourri? Podpourri?
I know a lot of people kind of swallow the T when they say it.
Yeah. Podpourri. But we can't possibly do that with this podcast title because then that would, ruin the pun, everybody.
Okay, I had to do a spot of Googling on this one. Now, Pod Pourri, I think would be the right way to say it. Pod, because yes, that's what we are, a podcast. But the original word would have been potpourri, something like that. Potpourri. Potpourri. Yes, that would be the French way, and potpourri would be the English way. So I think it's safe to call this potpourri. Yeah, I think it is.
So I recently came across this very interesting New York Times article. I have to say, in all of the work that we do for, so many of our clients, figuring out so much content, New York Times really has been kind of my best friend in the strangest way. Not only have I started playing all of their word games, which again, I think I take a little bit of that from Sheetal because I keep seeing her do the spelling bee, but I came across this article on New York Times that talked about how grocery bills are now a huge cause for concern, especially for people in America, because food has started costing a lot of money. And that is, of course, very, very concerning. And this article basically talked about how you can save on food by being more conscious or intentional when it comes to your grocery bills. I just had a question. What do you personally spend the most amount of money on when it comes to food or snacks? Is there one luxury thing that you just can't let go of that you always spend money on that you're maybe I should, but it's fine?
I think for me, it started off as something I just wanted to try, but it soon became something that I just order whenever I'm at a whim, and it's bubble tea.
Oh my God.
I don't even like it that much, especially the popping kind, but they're just so much fun. It's like a whole experience.
The popping kind is the absolute worst. I think it's one of those, I just don't even trust people who like the popping kind of bubble tea. But yeah, bubble tea is a good answer, actually. It's what do you mean you don't like it that much?
You can literally taste that they've added a little bit of water to it to make it a little bit more runny. So you can taste the milk, you can taste the water, and you can taste literally sabudana.
Sabudana, correct. Yeah, and tapioca balls. That's fantastic. What is the strangest flavor of bubble tea you've ever tried?
Black currant, I think.
Whoa, that sounds intense. Sounds like it has a lot of sugar in it as well. Yeah. Well, I only used to try bubble tea at this one Bangalore hotspot called Big Straw. Did you know of Big Straw?
Yes.
I look at Aditi like she's a child. She's just a few years younger than me. I'm now starting to be the very adults I used to make fun of. But Big Straw used to be like this hotspot in our lovely city of Bangalore, and everyone would go there after school. For me personally, college. And then we'd see girls from other schools and we'd be like, oh my God, hello. But yeah, and that was my only exposure to bubble tea, and that shut down. So now I have no bubble tea exposure at all. The food that I spend way too much money on. I'm going to think about this one. Before Sheetal, can you go? Like, what food item or grocery item is your guilty expenditure?
Let me think. Food or grocery item that I indulge in. Okay, so it's not a luxury good per se because you use that word, but it is something that I can't do without. I need 3 of my Britannia milk bickies every morning with my coffee. Whatever happens, I really feel like I haven't started the day on a proper note if these 3 biscuits are missing. 2 is also less, actually. 3 is the perfect number. So I think that's my guilty pleasure because there's no great nutrition to be had out of these, maida type of biscuits. But yes, I'd say that one.
Okay, I have a big weakness for like imported things. Ever since I was a child, my parents, like they always go shopping at these places that always has this one imported section of things. I definitely have not crossed the line into the dark side of buying like a packet of Cheetos for 900 rupees because yes, everyone listening, no matter where you are, that's how much a bag of Cheetos costs in Bangalore simply because it's imported. But I will say some of like the Korean snacks I spend a little too much money on, like shrimp crackers, all of that kind of stuff. And it definitely costs more than Maggie. I don't need to be spending that money, but I do anyway. So that's definitely my guilty pleasure. Okay, so moving on to, you were very happy when I said imported food. Why?
I just remember going, like you said, to the supermarket with my parents, and for me it was not so much Korean snacks as much as candy.
Oh my God. What is your favorite candy? You know what mine is? Those cables with like the fondant inside. Oh my God. I'm feeling a little diabetic just talking about it.
There used to be these coin chocolates.
Oh, I love those.
Yeah, those were really, really cute. And they used to like... It's almost as if we didn't know what flavor it would be, so you kind of open it and eat it, and each time it would be either some disgusting strawberry or like...
Damn, Aditi's got like the fancy coin chocolate. My coin chocolate was literally just chocolate in every single coin.
Really?
Yeah.
The ones I saw were different flavors within each chocolate, and I remember I think there was also an Indian one that came out soon after, but I would always go for the foreign one, and my parents used to always be like, why? It's just better to buy the other one.
Yeah, fair enough. So on Pod Pourri, we always sort of, we're exposed in our line of work to so much content in a week's time, I swear to God. And given that it's been a long time since we've been on air, we've sort of picked up many things along the way, including Aditi, the human being. But today we're going to be talking about some of our own personal, what would you call it, interactions with new knowledge. And Aditi, maybe why don't you start us off with something that is a matter of interest to you that you learned?
I actually learned a lot, considering that it's only been about a month since I entered. So this took me a lot of time to actually pen down. But this is an interesting one. I mean, I was writing a script for another podcast series of Timber Media. I mean, shameless plug in there, The Explainers. And this was about AI. So I was writing a script, and instead of writing simulation of tornadoes, I wrote stimulation of tornadoes.
What even is this?
Exactly. And what does it imply to the world? But I was proofreading it, right? And it was a longish document. And to me, like, the addition of T didn't make much of a difference, and I couldn't really make it out. So I hit send and I sent it to someone who very kindly pointed it out to me that you might be saying something different here, and it changes the tone of the whole podcast. So I obviously made that change. And while listening to the podcast that aired, without the mistake, of course, it got me thinking about other places like movies and TV shows where mistakes like this happened. And one thing that I could remember from the top of my head was the infamous Starbucks Game of Thrones incident. Do you know what happened?
God, that is so true. And to think it happened in the last season as well. Like,
exactly.
They were so good with it all the way up till the end, and then, yeah.
it's also, I mean, I'm not even a Game of Thrones fan. I don't, what is it, a Gotti? What do you call it?
I don't know, because I'm not one either, so.
I mean, this news became everything that people were talking about, at least after the time that it aired. So imagine this, right? You're in their world and there's this great battle of fire and ice or whatever. And it was also in the middle of a celebratory feast, I think. So everyone's sitting there in all their glory, raising a toast. But in the middle of the toast, there happens to be a Starbucks cup.
I really feel for the production assistant on that episode, though, because I'm sure they're never going to live that down.
Oh, they actually took this to social media, the crew.
Oh, really?
And they kind of responded saying they were not paid for that shoot. And also that this happened because they were pulling one too many all-nighters, because a lot of the show is usually filmed during nighttime.
That's a really good one. And also, I guess what happens when your working conditions, everybody, are not in order. You got to treat your people right in order for them to function normally. But yeah. Are there any other examples?
Yeah, this actually made me spiral down a big rabbit hole of crazy production errors.
The randomest Reddit thread ever.
Exactly.
Yes.
But there's actually a website called Movie Errors, and they kind of document this. So it's all that they do.
Yeah, I was rewatching Friends recently. Please don't ask me why. It's not like it's worth it. But I was rewatching it. And I just realized how lazy some of the episodes were in terms of the production, because people would just and I get it because they were on, just the churning of one episode after the other. I get that. But the production itself on set, in one cut of one scene, Rachel will be wearing a necklace, and in the next cut she's not wearing it anymore, and it's the same scene. And I was like, why did that happen?
What you said reminded me of this other example that I looked up, which is actually a very iconic film, Pulp Fiction. And it would be
I thought Pulp Fiction was blemish free.
So in Pulp Fiction, right, there's the same continuity errors that you mentioned, where in some scenes the briefcase is open, and whereas in some scenes the briefcase is shut.
Wow, Tarantino.
Yeah, exactly.
Heck you.
And the other one, which was a real shocker, is Black Panther. You would assume that a multi-billion-dollar budget film...
You know what? As someone who is actually not a fan of the Marvel universe at all, I'm kind of glad that happened, because I'm like, see, this is what happens when you've got a factory line of movies. But yeah.
So in one of the fight scenes, you can actually see the reflection of a crew member.
What? That's bizarre. That's so sad. Yeah.
I mean, the shutting of a briefcase, okay.
Yeah.
Rachel's necklace, okay.
Okay. The reflection of a crew member, I mean, at least they got to be in the movie. So that's good. Hey. Were they credited as supporting actor?
I think they should tweet saying, hey, catch me at 1 hour 55 minutes.
Okay, so when you told us that this is what you were going to talk about, you also said something very interesting about proofreading that happened recently in the United States of America.
Right.
I'm really intrigued to hear this story, please.
So I was trying to make a link and trying to see if something like this happened recently, because these movies are, I know, things that come and go, things that people talk about, but next day it's forgotten. But this actually happened 5 days ago in the White House, during the White House press briefing. And during the press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, I hope I'm pronouncing her name right, a television screen is usually behind these people, kind of projecting whatever they're talking about, right?
Ah, okay.
So in the middle of her speech, there was a screen that kind of just showed a string of numbers and letters without it having no coherent meaning at all.
Yeah.
And people, I mean, because there's so many people, the whole of United States probably is tuned into this.
And India, apparently. A little bit of it.
Yes, a little bit of India. They were quick to point this out, and they were like, this was the most notable moment of the whole press briefing, apparently. And this display actually turned out to be mirrored notes from a technician who was working behind the scenes.
Oh.
Yeah, but if you ask me, I think because these press briefings are so serious, it kind of added a not so serious touch to it.
Yeah, and I'm sure there were lots of memes, lots of trolling. These press briefings are actually quite hilarious when you see sometimes the interactions between the journalists and the speakers. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Okay, so Sheetal wanted to reveal her topic of interest all the way at the end of the podcast, because it's a very, very informative note that we're going to be ending on, but...
saving the best for last.
hey man. But yeah, probably. I actually wanted to talk about a book that I've been reading recently called Focus on What Matters. I know it sounds very cringy because it's like, yes, the title of every self-help book ever. No, but I was in Cochin and my younger cousin brother, he just had this book lying on his table. And honestly, the description of it, I fully judged this book by its cover. The description of it is what caught my eye because it's a collection of Stoic letters on how to live life well. And the author, whose name is Darius Furo, I think I'm pronouncing it right. I really do hope I am. But he's a Stoic, so he won't care anyway. But he has been practicing Stoicism and has been very sort of taken by the philosophy of Stoicism, this ancient philosophy, right, from the time of Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, all of these awesome philosophers who were also Stoics. And he basically sort of translates them and contextualizes them in our world today. He's very gung-ho about investing. He's a writer. So all of the things he's sort of talking about relate to very modern day context, so it doesn't feel, that philosophical, but at the same time some very valid points about how you can approach life, how you can not yearn for control over things you don't have control over, and how all of that can eventually lead you to a better life and a higher quality of life. So it's been really fascinating. It's a very light read. So we were talking about how attention spans have sort of come down. I think mine definitely has when it comes to reading. This book, Focus on What Matters, I think has something for everybody, whether it's yourself, whether it's relationships with other people, whether it's, your relationship with the world, with news, with money, whatever it is. I think this book has something for everybody. It's a good recommendation, honestly. Read it if you feel like it. But
I might actually go pick it up.
Yeah, focus on what matters, people. No, I felt like he could have picked maybe a less preachy title for the book, but,
right.
But it still resonates, and it's I've been really enjoying it. So yeah, that's my learning from this week. Okay, Sheetal, best for last, as Aditi says. Please to tell us what you wanted to talk about today.
So, I wanted this to be the last thing that we did on the podcast today on Pod Pourri. And the inspiration really came from a Rediff.com article by a journalist who spoke of how we need to remind ourselves every day so that the victims of the Pune Porsche accident really get their justice. And she intends, apparently, signing out every piece that she does hereon with a reminder for us to not forget about justice for victims. And that she also clarified was an idea that she got from Walter Cronkite himself, who apparently, for the length of the Iran hostage crisis, added the length of the hostages' captivity to the show's closing every time he was on air in order to remind the audience of the unresolved situation. So this began apparently on the 16th of Jan in 1980, day 50 of the crisis, and went on to day 444 on the 20th of January in the year 1981, a full year almost, really. So yes, I wanted this to be the last thing because I think we can't remind the vulnerable enough to be careful when it comes to cybercrime and fraudulent activities that can leave you poorer by lakhs of rupees, as we've heard in many cases. So that's really what I wanted to talk about over here. And there's some recent data that I thought I'll cite. Between Jan and April of 2024, apparently citizens of the country have suffered losses exceeding 1,750 crore rupees due to cybercriminal activities. And this was reported through over 740,000 complaints lodged on the National Cybercrime Reporting Portal, which is, by the way, managed by the Ministry of Home Affairs. And most of the victims fell prey to online investment fraud, gaming apps, algorithm manipulations, illegal lending apps, sextortion, and OTP scams. And this is something that is real because I think by now, every one of us has received one of those calls, courier frauds. I myself got a call from someone claiming to be part of FedEx or DHL, I can't remember who. And then after that, telling me that there was contraband that I had sort of attempted to courier between Lucknow and Myanmar. And if I didn't provide details of my Aadhaar, etc. or something, I would have a lot to answer for. Luckily, I hung up the phone, but not a lot of people, sort of figure that this is really a fraudster. So yeah, I thought maybe on Pod Pourri today, I'd talk about some of the ways in which scammers target us. They often send unsolicited messages through emails, social media, messaging apps, and they promise easy money or lucrative investment opportunities. And the idea is to always be skeptical of messages like this, especially if they come from unknown sources. I've read in the New Yorker of an instance where a woman got scammed by a man. This was sort of a romantic angle that the man had chosen to pursue, created an entire fake identity and, got into this relationship largely online with a woman. And at the end of the whole story, she went bankrupt. And this is a true story that appeared in the New Yorker. I have a friend's friend who got scammed of a lot of money on account of one of these digital arrest sort of situations that happened to her, where they said they were placing her under digital arrest. And there was a customs officer and all kinds of people who showed up wearing the uniforms of these officers, pretending to be them. So most of us really know someone who's had this sort of an experience, so this is real. Also, job offers come to you via scammers and they promise you great opportunities in India and abroad. They offer remote work opportunities, great financial reward, all of this. Be very careful. I've also heard of people receiving calls from people claiming to be the near and dear ones, sometimes using a voice mimicking software or even an image mimicking software. So the person sort of looks like you, but it's all grainy and they're in a panic situation. They need money. And before you know it, you've parted with that money to help your loved one out of a situation. Turns out it wasn't them at all. So I really caution all of our listeners to warn the vulnerable around them. And by this, I don't just mean senior citizens, because sometimes people like my mother are a lot smarter. Sometimes it's not just senior citizens, it's people much younger who fall prey to such scamsters. So that's one. Job offers, investment opportunities, verify the authenticity through official company website or government portals that these people claim to be representatives of. First, always hang up the phone and then verify is what the experts advise. Protect your personal and financial information by keeping it private. And if you feel that you've been the target of cyber scam, first of all, if it's a financial fraud, then make sure that you contact your banks to block your cards and other information, secure your other information before it's too late. Report the incident immediately to the National Cybercrime Reporting Portal. And this is cybercrime.gov.in. Okay, why am I doing this to you? I should read out the entire URL. Watch out for the S in the HTTPS because S denotes secure. So yes, it is https://www.cybercrime.gov.in. And yes, that's what I had to contribute to Pod Pourri today. Thought it had to be said. And yes, the Walter Cronkite part is, I'm hoping that this is the last segment on Pod Pourri today, unless one of you decides to add something else. But I maybe all of the Pod Pourri should now have some sort of a public service message in this area of cybercrime. But I'm quite certain the show producer might shoot that idea down. But nevertheless, here I have said it. And I hope it happens. Be careful. Stay safe.
No, I think that's a very worthy suggestion, actually, Sheetal. Maybe we should try to do that, and definitely an important sort of topic to think about. Maybe Aditi was right, saving the best for last, or actually not even the best, but, something very important for last. It's been very good to jump back onto Pod Pourri. Honestly, I shouldn't be hosting this podcast. I never know how to say the name of the podcast. It's like hosting 101.
Pod Pourri.
Pod Pourri. Wow. She did it. That was good. But yeah, thank you, Aditi. How has it been? Your
Awesome.
first podcast?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very nervous, but now nothing at all.
Did not sound like it. So at least you faked it till you made it.
Yes.
That was good. Did not
Focus on what matters.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in if you have. And we'll try to make sure that it's not going to be this long till you hear from us next. Of course, a different set of voices the next time. But yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. And we'll be back soon. Stay safe and happy. Bye-bye.